we're back with 843 TV, and now we have David Green, who is the Director of Business Development. But before we start exactly what we're going to talk about, I think we need another conversation. Let's talk about the population. In our first segment, we were talking about all the wonderful things, but who are we talking about, and who's our population?
We're talking about people with developmental disabilities, which covers many facets, autism, cerebral palsy, people with Down syndrome, a whole variety. But we're also talking about adults. So prior to being adults, they're usually being served within the educational process or in some other manner, shape, or form. But once they turn 22, there is nothing. They turn and wonder what's next. And that's where they seek us out or seek out their agencies. And that's where the coalition becomes vital in offering a understanding of what's in this community. But there is no lifelong place for them to live.
So let me ask you this: how are the government programs? Does South Carolina offer them? Or are we challenged in this area?
We're very challenged in this area in South Carolina, unfortunately. We have had tremendous understanding by Senators Tom Davis and other of our legislators, and we've received some grants from and through them. But at the same time, the grants that got approved for us were vetoed by the governor because he didn't think it was necessary. So there is a challenge for families, and that's probably the bigger part beyond Osprey, and that is bringing families together to let legislators know what their needs are.
You know, I've been to some of your events, and I have to say, a lot of the families have children adult children who have some sort of problem in disability, but the community is so strong, the support is so strong for each other. I think that's wonderful, and you've been able to put Osprey Village, the idea of it, to action. And now, let's talk about you, David. Let's talk about where we're going with you.
Sure. The development of Osprey Village, the neighborhood with a purpose, as we call it, is starting to finally gain some momentum. We had the land donated to us out in the East Argent project, so we've got 25 acres we can build on, a total of 63 acres in a parcel there. It sits about a mile back in off of Route 170 across from Oldfield, and they are building a roadway back to that, which should be complete this month, we're hearing. So sometime later we'll actually be able to go out and see what it looks like and what's there and what we had donated to us. It's old, Union Camp pine tree type of terrain there. But the project for us now is, what are we going to build there, how are we going to design it, and so forth. So we've got the architectural plans for the homes to come up with, and the other, the community center and so forth. We've got the land plan, how are we going to lay it all out, how are we going to phase this in over time. Obviously we're not going to build out 25 acres all at once. And then the engineering, where the roads and water and sewer lines and all that going to go, and all the permitting. I mean, if anybody has built a house or had one built for them, this is a lengthy process. So realistically, from the time we can set foot on the property until the time we can actually start moving dirt and putting things in the ground is probably a year at this point. But the need that we have now is to get those experts on our team that can help us with getting that project moving forward. People who have architectural, land planning, other experience, and the funding to be able to pay them for those who we need to engage as our professional persons.
And so are we in that process? Are we looking for the funding to put this in place, or do we have it in place with the funding continuing?
We've got a couple of grant applications out that we're pretty hopeful about getting. One locally, one with more of a national grant that we think we have a good chance of getting. But also we've had interaction with some of the major utilities in the area, like Palmetto Electric, like Hargray, and some others that may be able to donate some of their services, or for example, Palmetto Electric could be the trench master for all the utilities that have to go in there, assuming we're going to do an all-electric community, which is what our plans are. So all those things have to come in place, plus we've got to raise funds on our own to make that all happen.
And then that allows us to get matching funds from the state through their grant program for housing.
And that's just the capital side of it. Then you've got the services side of it, which is actually the bigger challenge in a lot of ways, because right now there's several thousand people on waiting lists for services across the state. And in particular, you can get services if you live in your own home and just need some support services like respite or day program and so forth. But there's also residential services, which is a whole separate waiting list with a couple thousand people on it, and they haven't assigned any new funding slots in 5 years. And you can
Wow.
imagine as the population of the state grows and people age, those numbers keep going up. And so that's really the bigger problem statewide that we're trying to also, how do we make that work, you know, for the folks that we want to serve here.
You mentioned a lot of needs that are big picture.
Right.
What can the average resident in the community do to help? Now, of course, they can also make donation. What
Right.
else can they do? They can come in maybe to this shop and
And buy something and volunteer.
We do that.
Volunteer, participate in our fundraisers, learn more about what is going on,
Right.
not only in the Osprey Village concept, but in the world of developmental disabilities in the Low Country, and the need for that. And also to know that there are families that need support and help that they may want to come on and volunteer with us. So there's multiple ways. It's more, I think what we would like to see a lot of people in this area do is educate themselves about this. And then again, know that we're available to speak to any organization would like to know more about us and more about our population, which we enjoy doing, David and I.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you very much for joining us. I mean, there's so much to talk about, but
Oh, it
we
could go
are
on
running
for
out of
hours,
time.
yes.
So we will see you again, I'm sure.
Yes, and we thank you for your
And we'll have
time.
more to talk about as you progress.
As we hope so.
And stay around the shop.
and you stick around too for the last episode segment coming up on this episode of 843 TV.